7 participants.
Right now, me come up in a one taxi a while ago. So orange.
Hello? Hello? Yeah. everyone, and welcome to the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students Town Hall Jamaican Youth and Politics Shaping the Democracy. A couple of you have been on for a minute now. We're just giving a few other people a few more minutes to join us because you definitely don't want anybody to miss out on this very interesting conversation. So just start the discussion. We're at a fair number of attendees now. Let me just get my camera on right here. And everybody, welcome to the Politics Shaping the Democratic Landscape. First of all, if you guys have been on probably thousands of Zoom meetings by now, so you know that you mute before you come on, etc. Don't really need to do much of that housekeeping. A conversation for us to be having at this time. For instance, we know that our electors go to the poll to cast their ballots on Thursday, and as such, there are a few more days, well, a few more hours left before we know, who will be forming the next government in Jamaica. But a crucial part of it comes down to understanding the importance of youth involvement with the process. And I don't see a more fitting time and the topic to have this kind of conversation. But before we get into the meat of the matter, I'm going to invite Mr. David Hart, who is the policy analyst and youth empowerment officer, to bring some greetings. David, spotlight on you now.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you, Joel. Yeah, I think my camera, yeah, it should be on, just so I'm able. Yes, I'm not. It seems like I'm having a bit of connectivity issue. Just let me sort that out. I'm not hearing. Okay, yes. Um, so thank you, Joel, again. Greetings, everybody. I know we have a, quite a bit of keen areas on this forum, really anticipating what the discussion will entail. And so I won't be long because we're off to a late start based on my clock. And I just want to really use the opportunity to uh, big up Jutes for organizing this forum. It is, as you've said, it's really a crucial time for us to be having this discussion. And it's a discussion that we need to have on not necessarily, not seasonal, really. It's a discussion that really should be happening as a part of the wider political discourse about how, well, youth participation in the election process through political identity. It's a discussion that we haven't been having much, and whenever, as you can see, even in the debates, just jump into that youth issues were really underrepresented. In all three thematic debate. Not only that, there is this notion that youth participation is very tokenistic and it stops at their participation in terms of volunteerism and civic contribution. But it goes further because, interestingly, one of the single most powerful tool we have or young people have is the opportunity for those who are enumerated to vote. That, that opportunity represents your voice. That opportunity really legitimizes your advocacy. A lot of times we talk about issues that needs to be addressed. And when it comes down to it, when you really get that opportunity to address those issues, especially through the electoral process, we find that there's that participation. Already we have very an apathetic electorate in Jamaica. The last election, it was some 47 point odd percent voter turnout. This election, given the pandemic, it may be even lower, and it may affect not only the core electorate who you'd find usually going out there, but young people who maybe have not been engaged in the electoral process, have not been engaged in the governance process. Just to close, I just want to say that it is one of the priority areas. It is a mission. It is one of the biggest mandate of the Youth and Adolescent Policy Division, facilitate youth participation in governance process. And I'm sure a lot of young people on this forum right now have been given those opportunities through several avenues via the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. We have the National Youth Parliament, we have the Youth Advisory Council, we have JUTS, all of those youth organizations that we have been partnering with, because we do, the ministry does, well, we don't necessarily take on the view that, yes, we are facilitators in a way that, okay, we're up here and you're down there. The approach for us is to view young people as partners in the developmental process. Because if we really fail to do that, we will find ourselves back in the, well, we'll find ourselves in a space where we're only taking or we're only listening for answers we want. And we really don't want that. We really want that genuine input of our young people. And in this case, I am hoping that the panelists will, as they delve in the discussion, will discuss why why is it necessary for you to turn out? Why is it necessary for you to exercise your franchise? And to really, hopefully, by the end of the discussion, you'll have a greater appreciation of why voting is the bedrock of any democratic government, and why it is necessary through voting to continue to preserve that. Because the moment we stop participating in the electoral process is the moment we start to really give our leaders the opportunity to rule unilaterally and to rule in a dictatorial manner. It is, though it comes around every 5 years for general election and for municipal election, it's a very important opportunity and it speaks a lot. So kudos again to Jutes for putting this on. I'm looking forward to the discussion and learning as well, because I know that we have a very diverse panel of three. We have Tijani, we have a young independent MP, I can't recall the country right now, and we have also the chairperson for the CSA, the Commonwealth Students Association. And so I'm really anticipating all those diverse views, and I'm just really hoping that at the end of this session, we will not only go out on the election day as young people and vote, but to encourage our peers to do the same. Thank you, Joel. Over to you.
For that introduction. I'm going to hop over now to Mr. Everton Rattray, who is the president of Just to bring his greetings as well. Everton?
All right, thank you very much for that, Joel. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? If you can, could you just give me a raise of hand or something like that so I could know that I am connected? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much again, Joel. Good night, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, it's a very unique time for us. And I'm absolutely happy to see so many young persons joining tonight's discussion. As mentioned, my name is Everton Rattray, the president of this organization that is hosting this forum, just as a way of encouraging young people to get involved in the political process and also helping young people to understand the importance of us playing a part in that process. You know, tonight we're going to be having a discussion with three particular persons on the panel who are very diverse. You know, we have Tijani Christian, who is the leader of the Commonwealth Youth Council, which is the biggest youth-led organization across the Commonwealth, you know, and it speaks to the diversity in terms of just his experience in terms of looking at the different Commonwealth countries and how they do leadership within those countries. We expect him to kind of show us in some regards, how is it, you know, young people approach, you know, politics in the different Commonwealth countries, and just try to help us young people to gain some perspective in Jamaica. You know, we have the leader of the Caribbean, the Commonwealth Students Association as well, which is another student or youth-led organization, more particular specific to students, you know, and she, Dr. Miza Reza, I hope I'm not butchering your name, but, you know, it's a pleasure to have you, and it's just to also give us a female perspective on youth involvement in politics. You know, Joel was very particular, I must mention, about, you know, who is the female panel on who is the female panelist, you know? So when we mentioned to Joel that we haven't confirmed Dr. Maisha's yet, and she just confirmed early on about yesterday. You know, so Joel, she's here, you know, just to definitely give us a unique perspective, from a female perspective rather, you know, and we also have Mr. John Paul, you know, I am going to leave the first name because I don't want to butcher it, who is also an independent candidate who's going to share his unique perspective as well on politics and young people getting involved in politics. So it's a very diverse panel that we have here tonight. And we have a lot of young persons who are listening on. So again, I just want to thank you all for joining. And Joel, I look forward to the diverse conversation that you're going to engage these young persons in. And I most definitely commend the lead on the hosting of this forum, Javon Reed, for making sure that this was a success behind the scenes with me, in tandem with the secretariat and the communications team. So just kudos to Javon and young people just listening, and just really hope that you will gain some perspective at the end of this. Again, thank you all, and looking forward to the discussion.
Tree. All right, we have a lot to unpack in less than an hour because I keep things very short and spicy so that we can actually learn and retain something. But before we do that, I'm going to invite Mr. Najee Nunez to give a quick introduction of the panelists that we have that will be sharing with us today. Najee?
Greetings all, are you hearing me? All right, wonderful. This evening, I am honored, humbled, and privileged to be able to introduce to you three young people of talent, charisma, and intellect. They are the Honorable John Paul, Dr. Reza, and Tijani Christian. The Honorable John Paul is a Kenyan political leader, currently the Member of Parliament in the National Assembly representing the people of the Igimbe South constituency. He's also viewed as an iconic leader among the youth people across the country and beyond, since he is the youngest person ever to be elected in Kenya as a Member of Parliament. He possesses a Bachelor of Arts degree in education, and some of his recognitions include being the keynote speaker at Africa for Africa, the African celebration during International Youth Day of 2020. And he has participated in meetings touching on youth-based leadership and democracy in New Jersey for the US, Brussels for Belgium, Cotonou for Benin, and Abuja for Nigeria. Dr. Reza is the chairperson for the Commonwealth Students Association, working to unify and represent the needs and aspirations of national student councils and other student organizations in the Commonwealth. She has received her PhD from the Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and is currently a lecturer in the biomedical sciences at the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom. She has been appointed as a trustee of the founding board of trustees of the 100 Million campaign for a world where all young people are free, safe, and educated. She is also an Asian youth fellow and a network of generation leaders who will influence and inspire youth to take the community forward as a strong and unified entity. Tijani, finally, is the currently elected chairperson of the Commonwealth Youth Council. Coming from our very own little but Talawa Island, he is the first chair from the Caribbean and Americas region. Tijani has been actively involved in youth activities, both at national and international levels, championing youth empowerment through leadership and capacity building. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you these three young persons who will be chartering the discussions for you tonight. Over to you, Joel.
So empowered now to kickstart the discussion. Welcome to all the panelists once more. I think it's a very impressive set. And of course, everybody feel free to utilize the chat section. If you might have questions, if you might have anything you want to, big up a point that was made. If you disagree with something, feel free to utilize the chat section, the Zoom group chat, so you can get those pointers across so that we can have something very fruitful. Now, let's get straight into it. So Tijani, Maisha, and John Paul. Now, first things first, biggest question for young people. We have so many persons tuned in right now and they want to know. Vote. Let me give the lady first. Why should we vote?
Hi, everybody. It's such a privilege to be on this panel. I feel, very privileged because Everton thought I was, worthy of being on this panel because everyone's, Jamaican, and I'm coming from a very, very different perspective. I'm coming from, Singaporean, slightly UK-ish, as well as, a lecturer perspective from here. And I'm also coming from the perspective as the chair of the Commonwealth Students Association. So I will speak today from the angle of students and young people, essentially, and why it's important for us to vote. So I think we've heard it so many times, it almost seems like a repeated statement where, you know, your vote is your voice, essentially, right? So one of the first things that I would say is we often, as young people around the world, I'm not, you know, specifically going to speak about Jamaica today, I'm going to be on a very global perspective, suffer from youth apathy, I would say, where there's this perception where, you know, whether I vote or I don't vote, nothing's going to change, and, you know, it doesn't matter. So whether this government takes leadership or that government takes leadership, things are always going to be this way, and there's nothing I can do about it. I think that is something that is a very big trap that really disenfranchises young people away from holding governments accountable. I think as a young person, when you have an opportunity to make that vote and make that decision as to who your leader will be, you have an opportunity to hold people accountable. So if you, the scenario, if you decide you're not going to vote, so then you become, you don't end up being the voice that is holding the government accountable, right? So if you didn't utilize your voice and the government didn't do what they promised, let's say, you know, government X took over leadership 4 or 5 years ago, and they didn't do what they, you know, promised to do. And you today not voting is letting them pass, essentially. So I think voting is a start of representing your voice, holding the government accountable, making sure that you have the best leadership or the best opportunity to ensure that you have a dignified life, an opportunity for excellence. And if you're in a privileged position where whether the government raises tax or whether the government you know, makes a policy that doesn't really impact you, then you also have a social responsibility to ensure that the vulnerable people in your community or those that do not have those privileges have a shot at that dignified life, at a life of potential excellence. So I think there's several aspects to this. The moral aspect of, you know, that social responsibility, that power aspect where you can hold the government responsible, you hold your leaders and, you know, people in parliament responsible because they're ultimately representing you. So you have to choose who you're happy to represent yourself, right? And this is a very big, I think we also don't sometimes understand the struggles that our ancestors have faced, whether it's allowing women to vote, whether, you know, globally allowing Black persons to vote. It is a huge struggle. They have fought and given their lives for it because it has that significance. And I think today we take it for granted because we are not making that struggle. We don't have that struggle to be able to vote. So as a woman myself, I just feel like this is it is a small but very significant way to start making sure that my voice is heard and the leaders that I choose truly represent me. And if they're not doing their job, then I have a way and a potential of giving someone else that space to represent my interests.
And brilliant opening right there. You know, it brings together so many different moving parts that oftentimes we overlook. I mean, I'm going to be playing devil's advocate with you a little bit later, especially with the fact as it relates to, you know, our ancestors who had to do this, and, you know, because of the difference in time right now, that I don't believe that's respected. So, you know, it makes a question, why do you even exercise that? But we'll come to that a little bit later. Jean-Paul, I want to give you the floor right now. Why should young people vote? Why should we head to the polls on Thursday in Jamaica to exercise our democratic rights?
Well, thank you very much, Joel. First and foremost, let me say it's very late in the night here, or early in the morning, because it is exactly 3 here in Kenya. Secondly, let me thank you for inviting me to come and talk to the young people. Being an elected young parliamentarian in Kenya, it is something which was very difficult, and it's something many saw as if it cannot happen for a young person. to vie and be elected as a member of parliament, many depend on the government to nominate or government nominations, whereby you are given a post without contesting, without interacting with the electorate, whereby you are supposed to be voted in. You sell your policies, then the people vote you. I am that privileged person who was elected without using any political party. So I think that tonight or today, today evening, I will be of importance to the people of Jamaica, to the people of this world. First and foremost, the young people are supposed to vote. When you are voting or when you exercise your right of voting, you have a chance to make your voice be heard. Secondly, you have the choice to make your choice according to the leader who you want to lead you. Because the policies that a leader has is the ones which you are electing. Because for the young people to vote, you are not supposed to vote because of a certain political party. You are supposed to vote because there is some of the ideas, some of the policies which are driving you to vote a certain politician. So you are not supposed to vote a politician by the name or by the political party which that politician come from, but by the ideas, by the policies which that politician has. That the young people of Jamaica are supposed to vote so that they can have numbers in the House of Representatives, whereby their policies can be executed as they want. Because when the young people are not represented in the National Assembly or in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, their voice are dimmed, their voice are not heard. But if they have the numbers in both houses, their voices are heard. So it is very, very important for the people, especially the young people, because we are in large numbers, but representation in the both houses is very low. This is one of the things which is supposed to challenge us to go out and vote, especially you having elections on that. Young people are supposed to be in the front line to go and vote so that they can exercise their right, they can make their voice be heard, they can make their policies be heard by the government of Jamaica. And not only Jamaica, any part in this world where we do our vote, it is the right time for the young people now to project their voice and be heard by the government. Thank you.
Know how we're going to top that introduction, John Paul. I think that's tremendous in terms of so many moving parts that you covered just now, and it's all feel the zest coming from you as well because you have experienced that, and I'm really hoping that before the night ends. And by the way, guys, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. Remember saying if you like the discussion so far, make us know. Say like the discussions. Keep the chat lit, please. Yeah, 57 of you are on here, so let us ensure that we're getting the conversation in. Very critical points that definitely resonate with me as an apathetic youth. I have my reasons, and I'm sure a lot of persons on the call, some might be apathetic, some might be, very vote on Thursday, but it's important to look at everything from a microscopic point of view. I see Darian White saying, what an opening. No, I want to cement up the first part of the discussion in terms of why we should vote with Tijani, because Tijani, being the Jamaican panelist here, I hope can bring what Maisha and John Paul just said, his own twist on it so that we can actually get something concrete. So Tijani, the floor is yours. Why should we head out to the polling stations on Thursday, Tijani? Talk to us.
Okay, thank you, Joel, and let me, of course, thanks for the invitation by Jutes to be here with you this evening. I actually told them I'm happy that it's just an hour because I'm preparing for another interview right after this. So what is clear is that we are clear on one thing. Let's agree on one thing. It's important to vote. We all agree on that. So if that is the situation, why then aren't we doing it? And so I want to break it down in probably two. So the state of apathy is not what I call it is not, in the end, you reach a state of apathy because of an experience you're going through. And persons think that apathy started at, let's say, the age of 10 or 12 or 13. It would have been built up experiences that you have now said that I'm an apathetic. You've now owned it and realized that this is what I am. And I've accepted this, even though I know it's important to vote. And why is that then? That you've reached this state of apathy. And one of the particular reasons is that persons think that participation is only in voting at every 4 to 5 years. It is not that. Participation means that young people, and well as with gender balance, must be evident in all decision making. If at a 4 to 5 years, you're going to come to me and tell me no, that my voice is important, but during your tenure, that you had the power and you had the responsibility and you had the wherewithal to ensure that young people was on the board, you had ensured that young people was involved in the consultation, that young people were involved in the implementation. Why at 4 to 5 years now I should believe you when you had all the power to do it and you did not include us? Those are the things that lead to apathy. Registering your voice to vote is one, but it is because you felt mistreated in the entire process between 4 to 5 years, especially in the Commonwealth situation where we are in this British style kind of parliament, where it's 4 to 5 years and you choose the prime minister is almost gifted when you can call the election date. Now, if 4 to 5 years you didn't think that I was important to sit on the board, mark you, even though I may not be partisan to your view, but because you think that I have the quality that is needed to rigorously lead and help the decision-making process, why now do you think I'm important? Why now do you think I'm important to go and ink my hand and now vote for you? So that is one of the reasons. So the decision-making process across the policy sphere, whether it's to sit on a school board, whether it is to sit on a government advisory board, whether it is to sit on a committee level, or whether it is to have conversation with the Prime Minister about the issues affecting you, those were not fulfilled. Don't come to me at 4 to 5 years. Because the truth is it's going to happen at the next 4 to 5 years when you had all the power and you still didn't do it. So that is one. The second thing is representational. If I don't see persons who identify with my, I guess Dr. Reza can ensure that I use this word correctly because my science is from high school, sixth form. If I don't see persons representing not only my phenotype features, but also my understanding in terms of age group, why should I vote? And let me say this to persons. You may pick a slate of candidates to go for the representation in terms of who will run for a seat. That is fine. But the Senate is up to the leader of the party. Which it means then you have the opportunity that even if you didn't select me to run, you could have selected me to be a senator. And if you had the power to do that, why didn't you? When you had capable young people there all along. So now you're telling me no to get involved or vote for you, but when it is time for me to monitor the decision making, to be a part of the process in terms of being invested strategically, even though I may not be partisan to your view, you do not include me. So you failed in participation, and then you also failed in representation. And then there's the other part in participation that people tend to take the optics of things without looking at the meaningful impact of participation. So now you have the tokenistic view of participation where both and in the Jamaican space or be more current. Both sets of parties.
Hi guys, tomorrow.
both parties, and tomorrow to you too, both parties as...
1 second, Tijani. Just reminding everybody, please mute your microphones. Please, please, please. Thank you. Continue, Tijani. Right on the high there.
No problem. So both parties have selected young people, and they are bragging about it. 16 have selected equal set of young persons. And remember, young person is relative in a political age. I've decided...
So I was about to ask you your perspective on that part.
To come in for me, Joel. So let me say, the disclaimer is, it is not 15 to 29 I'm using, which is the Commonwealth definition or Jamaica's youth policy definition, but rather, in some African countries, it's up to 35, and even in St. Lucia, it's up to 35. I'm using relatively to what we see in general politics. So anybody below 40, so to speak, we're just going to call them young. All right? So let's use that as the definition. When I checked 16, I looked at the slate of candidates for the PNP. I would call, there are 3 different kinds of seats. I call them comfortable, marginal, or problematic. Now, in comfortable, it means that their margin of victory in the last election was wide. So, you know, more than likely, it's going to come back. We call those strongholds, and those exist not just in Jamaica, but in every Commonwealth country. You have 4 young persons in somewhat comfortable seats. You have 6 of them in marginal seats, means it may swing either place. You have 6 now in problematic, meaning that no matter what wind may blow or COVID comes, historically, the trend is that they will stay with that party. So that's how that 16 is made up. I go over to the JLP. 1 young person is in a comfortable seat because their margin of victory is more than 2,000. And then look at the marginal seats. 6 persons are in marginal. And then in problematic, 9. So I add it up, and this is not to take in any side. You cannot be say reasonably that you want me in the parliament when you place me in a position that is more than difficult, when you know young people do not have the economic capital to run in many of these races unless they are backed by the political parties strongly themselves. And I say this without question or even apology. If you want me in the House of Representatives, I know you will put me in a seat that makes sense. Because we've seen it in the by-elections. We've seen it in the general elections where persons who are placed, who you can see that they want them in the house, they are placed in given, almost gifted into seats. But you're going to place me, the young person, to run against, for example, in a constituency as Southwest St. Andrew against Angela Brownberg. Does that make any sense when her margin of victory is 10,000 votes? We don't even know who run against her. Those are some real facts. So it can't be tokenistic. It has to be real. If you want me there, and if that is not the case, don't put me on an embarrassment to go and run up against a difficult seat. Just tell me that we'll make a place for you in the Senate, where you can have more value in terms of intellectual contribution, and that is where you will be placed. That is fine. But don't use me as an idol. And then the reality is, I know the facts. So those things are what we need to really look at. That is what adds up to apathy. It is a state that you go into, not because of one day, but it's an experience that leads you to think that nothing may not change. So realistically, you have to, yes, ink your hand, that is important to do. But I don't see the apathy thing changing right now unless parties are willing to take out some, as my grandmother would say, old ratoons, create a strong succession plan where others can really get into the seat. That is not older, but younger people, and then we know that you're really serious about young people voting. Because now I see people who look like me, and I understand that there are people with my sense of knowledge and my experience to vote. Remember, at the end of the day, if your phenotype or your own youthful conscience and understanding is not at the table, then it won't be truly represented. Thank you very much.
I think you just articulated everything that I have been thinking, because apathy goes way beyond just the basics of what's presented. And I too have, thought that deep into why it is that I wish not to become a part of the process. However, I'm still an advocate for the process. I'm an advocate in telling people that don't vote for foolishness. You know what I mean? But you know, majority of the points that you just brought across in terms of even, I see somebody in the chat say sacrificial lamb politics. It's blatant and it's sad because you still have persons running with the narrative that this is a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's not. Look at the women in politics, and I'm going to touch back base with Maisha very shortly. Some of the women who they have placed, so they're bragging that there are 12 women from one party and 19, 16 something from another party. A couple of those women are going up in stronghold seats. That as well. Yes, it's wonderful that you have so many women participating in, you know, running for office, but how many of them will actually make it into you know, the House of Representatives? And then bringing back the conversation now to young people. We hear young people being thrown around, young people this, young people that. And I was almost crucified the other night when I mentioned on Twitter, why can't we have a minister of youth who is 25? And I was met with criticism. How can we have a minister that's 25 because that person needs experience? And I'm like, well, you have 50-year-olds who are in parliament who are living in paradise right now. Why can't we have somebody in the Senate that's 21? You know, and my thing is it can happen, but a part of the challenge as well is that some young people have given up they're so clouded in with political cataracts that they can't see it. And it's the same young people who are online telling me that we can't have a minister of youth at 25, we can't have a senator at 21, or we can't have a permanent secretary at 35. You know what I mean? So probably I was dreaming in Technicolor. But anyway, those are some really strong openings, Tijani, Jean-Paul, and Maisha. I think it's very important for us to really look further and dig deeper into the you know, the heart of the discussion, and not just present voter apathy and youth, you know, lack of participation as something that, oh, you know, we just don't want to do it. There's a reason why we don't want to do it. I want to invite persons to shoot your questions in the chat, in the chat box. We have just a little over half an hour to go, but let me shoot a second question to Maisha. In what ways or areas of the democratic process would youth impact be most impact twice? But in the democratic process, where do you see the youth having, you know, driving some really robust change?
Right. So this is a very interesting, you know, question, and I was listening to John Paul and Tijani, and I agree to large parts of what, you know, both of them were saying, of course, with Tijani as well. But here's where I'm coming from before I answer specifically your question. So I understand the apathy, you know, the 4 years, you know, they promised something, you didn't do it. But I feel like we don't understand our power necessarily, and we don't understand the impact we can have. We think that, okay, because the politicians promised something, they didn't deliver. Now 4 years later, we're just there helpless, and, you know, what can we do? But I think we need to take the narrative back from government and politicians back to ourselves. And I have, you know, had the privilege of spending some time in Jamaica. I've met several politicians as well in my capacity as chair, and I've spoken to them. And, you know, some of the things that generally, I will not mention names, you know, I was being told, but if students and young people themselves don't understand their power and don't understand the kind of value they have, and they don't put governments under pressure, or they don't hold governments accountable, then I will not be necessarily focused on your issues. For instance, in my constituency, am I going to look at students' rights necessarily, or am I going to look at the issue of water and roads, for instance, which the people of my constituency is worried about, and they have that voting power. So they're going to vote me in or not going to vote me in, and I have to look at their interests. So as a young person, or as youth, we have to hold them accountable, and it's not just on the voting plane. So I think we mistake this, where we think, oh, why should I vote? And then 4 years we just go into some sort of hibernation or something like that. When we vote, it's the first step. you choose your leaders that get into parliament. After that, in the next 4 years, you have various ways of holding them accountable, whether it's petitions, whether it is calling them up, whether it's having town council meetings, questioning them, because after 4 years, they're gonna come to you and they're gonna campaign with you. You have to read manifestos, you have to read what they have promised and ask them, you said this road, you said this woman, you said this, what have you done so far? You have not done anything. And somebody saying that we promised to have more women. I actually watched the prime minister and the opposition leaders debate for Jamaica. Okay, so and I was
we love to see it.
And I was rather disappointed, I would say, from a very external perspective, on the response that both of them gave for women, having women in political parties or having women representation. It felt to me, as an outsider, that they were sliding around the question and they were not directly addressing what the point was, about what are the conscious steps and efforts that you need to take to have women in parliament. Now, that is the government's role, right? They make those promises and you have to hold them accountable. Are you going to make systematic changes, structural changes in society to make sure that the barriers that inhibit women from participating in different spaces in the economy and in high-level political spaces, are those barriers broken down? Whether it's childcare, elder care, a large part of domestic responsibility still lies on women, whether we agree, like it or not, as much as we've progressed. There are so many factors that is inhibiting that. And then from the government side, there is so much inhibitions, whether it's funding, whether it's, as you said, being on that, going against a stronghold seat, deliberately putting women in a place that is almost impossible to get them in, and then going, look at all these people that are campaigning and, being tokenistic about it. So there are multiple different problems from the ground level and from the government level as well. So I think young people, young women like myself, when I'm looking at the day that I need to vote, I'm going to look at who represents my interests, who can best represent my interests, not necessarily the political party, not necessarily who I want in terms of government. I'm going to look at, in my constituency, who is going to be able to best represent my interests, my voice in parliament, right? And then in the next 4 years, I can't just go missing. I have to continue holding the government accountable for different things that they said that they're going to do. Is the water not here? Write a letter, call, go to the office. There are many, many things. Tweet to a politician. And now we know how much impact social media can have. We know the image that can make or break while being on social media. Tweet at that person. You mentioned this. It's been 1 year. What is happening now? I think we have a lot more responsibility than just voting and then disappearing. So I have to bring up a very powerful example. One of my friends, she's Jamaican. Her name is Sabrina Brown, and she was advocating from her end to make the sexual offenders registry public. And there was a petition going on, and it didn't have many signatories, probably like 30%. And within like 1 or 2 months, she, using her social media platform, using her voice, advocated so strongly, and it became like a trickle-down effect, a branching effect, and it had reached that 15,000 signatures, and now the Office of the Prime Minister has to respond. That's a very simple example of a young person not waiting for 4 years to make that vote and then complain about something. That is holding government accountable, whether or not you voted for that person. That government's in power, you have to deliver on what you promised, whether I voted for you or not. And here is something that I'm going to do: use my voice on social media, use my voice on any other platform that I have, and make sure that if you lose my vote, then you're losing something. And I think, we need to reclaim that narrative, and I think we need to reclaim that power, that government is not doing something, so we are now helpless, we're apathetic. I think reclaiming that power and putting that forth and letting them know that if you're losing a young person's vote, you're losing something. And I think I'll leave it at that for now.
That is very solid. Reminder, guys, shoot your questions in the messaging section. I see a lot of comments coming in. I see persons agreeing with the speakers. I see Samuel say good point. I see Shamar saying young persons, yes, Joel criticized because one issue is instead of bringing change, they become mirror images of those they're seeking to gain favor with. That is absolutely correct. I see NK mentioned, I think one of the things not talked about enough in relation to the apathy is the fundamental unjust political process being impeded by garrisonization, voter buying, and we have so much mess to unpack, trust me. Thank you guys for sending in the comments, shooting your questions. I'm going to come up to the questions shortly. But John Paul, I have a question for you. And your situation was so unique that you were able to become a member of parliament through an independent contest, right? In Jamaica, of that opportunity, you have independent candidates running, but we are heavily built on a two-party system in Jamaica. The People's National Party. History in your country, and what advice do you have to the younger people on the call right now to create something similar?
I understand that this is something which the young people of Jamaica may see being difficult, because for somebody to register as a candidate in a certain political party is very expensive. For example, in Kenya, I failed to register as a member of any political party because the amount of money which they were charging for me to register was a lot of money. So I would not afford, but I had ideas which I knew that if I would say I would sell to the electorate of Igembe South, they would buy. But that's why I opted to contest as an independent candidate. As well as in this contest this evening, the young people of Jamaica, they can also demand for those political parties to lower the fee which they charge a politician, or they charge anybody who willing to sell with any of the two political parties. Because if the waiver of the amount of registration will not be met or will not be reduced, many young people will not be able to get the chance to contest in those political parties. That's why we miss some brilliant ideas, brilliant people, or the young people who has the ideas to implement and change the community from one state. Because I normally believe that the old people does not have the monopoly of ideas. As well as the young people, we have fresh ideas, which if we can be given chance, we can implement them and change the economic, the political status of any country in this world. That's why I believe in the power of the young people. So it is the right of the young people, because even the Constitution itself provides for the young people to hire their voices and to be listened and to. It is the right for the young people to raise their voices. If the chances of registering as a candidate in a certain political party, if the Constitution does not provide for the independent candidature in this country, it is the right of the people to demand the political parties to lower the chances of the fees which they charge for somebody to join a political arena. Secondly, it is the chance of the young people to have the will, because I normally understand that where there is will, there is way. If you have will and interact with the electorate, because what the electorate needs is the ideas which you have, is what you are planning to do to them. That is what they believe in. They do not believe in godfathers, because in my constituency, I had nobody who was holding my hand. I had nobody who did the introduction to the people of this constituency. I devoted myself and went to the people because I believed that the people, what they want was their ideas, which I earned, but not somebody who is pushing me. Secondly, I earned no money to give people handout so that they can vote for me, because many of the politicians, many of the young people, they feel they do not have strength because of the money power. Money is not everything in power. It is only your ideas which you can sell. Then it is not of much you have a big name or you originate in a big family, which can introduce you in politics and the people buy your views. It is not necessarily about the historical background or the family name or the family, maybe the family name. It is about you as a young person to come out and tell the people what you have for them, and that is what the people will buy. So it is the right time for the young people of this world to realize that they have the potential, and if they can exploit that potential, we can change this world. It is the belief of many old people.
Paul, I think you were muted just now, so you can unmute yourself and continue.
Hello? Hope I'm clear.
Yeah, you can continue now.
Was I in it, or there is nothing I have just articulated?
Second, I think it's because somebody joined the call, but you can continue on the same point that you were just now.
Okay, I was saying that many young people believe that they cannot make it because they do not have money to engage in politics. But that is not the case. Not necessarily somebody to have a godfather in politics so that you can make it. In my country, when I started vying, the leading political party, that is Jubilee, they had the candidate in my constituency. The leading or the majority party and the candidate in my place, and they came there drumming the support for the candidate whom they were supporting. But I didn't give up because I knew the people were not after the political party, but the people were after the ideas which they saw that those ideas would be attainable. So it is good for the young people who are vying for the membership of the House of Representatives to understand that those old cronies are not the ones who are carrying the future of the country, are not the ones who are carrying the ideas of the young people. Because if they are given the opportunity, it is rarely for them to articulate the ideas concerning the young people of our countries, not Kenya, not Jamaica, the whole world. That is how the leadership is set. The old people articulate the things which favors them. No, they not say something maybe which favors the young people, because they think the young people, they are yet to become leaders because they are not of age. But let us understand that experience is the good ideas which somebody have, is the good ideas if maybe articulated or implemented can bear good fruit, but not what that somebody believe that maybe you can be of 40 years or 50 or 60, that is the time you are ripe for leadership. That is not right. But a young person is capable of changing the country leadership if we are given chance. So please let us go for the political positions. Let us not shy off, because the intimidations are many. You are intimidated by those worthy people who are competing or who are competing in politics. But if we will believe that maybe if we are challenged by them, we cannot participate and fail or lose focus in participating, many of the young people will lose in political leadership. Let us believe in ourselves and run for these political parties, for these political positions, because we have the capacity of transforming our nations.
Paul, for that very powerful statement right there. I'm going to send over a question right now from the group to Tijani. Tijani, how do you propose young people deal with change that they're suggesting, but they are met with an ultimatum, which oftentimes goes against the very same change that they are suggesting to these people in power? How do we handle a situation like that if we're trapped in something similar?
Okay, thank you for that. Now, the thing is particularly relates to, let us understand the concept of power. Power is not something that is easily shared in any respect, meaning that you have the legitimate power that the Constitution gives to whoever wins the government, in terms of, as well as whoever wins their seat, you have some amount of power. So you have to understand that you're going into a room to sit with persons who legitimately have power that they do not want to share. And it means that anything that they can do to keep the power in a certain way, they're going to do it. So therefore, your idea that you're coming forward with, if it doesn't have any strategic alignment with their particular objective, immediately you're going to get a roadblock. You're going to get flagging, they're going to come at you and try to tear it apart and present you with an ultimatum. So I will marry a point with something that Maisha said. She said it clear. Numbers are important. Politicians respond to numbers. It's the only thing that they understand. It's one of the easiest things that they understand, numbers. If you have the numbers, then they will respond to it. So even if they are placed, you are given an ultimatum, then okay, step out the room, take it to social media, retweet and push everything. Push out the discussion, let it be known. They will have to respond, because politicians respond to numbers, because numbers can either heighten their popularity or worsen it. It is a popular politics game that we play. Public perception is based on popularity. Popularity equals power for the politician. If you affect the public perception, it means that popularity goes down, and therefore power is going to be questioned. So they will do anything, even to the level of the prime minister, will do anything they can to appease to your objectives. So if you don't get it in the room, when you go to negotiate it, take it to the media. Take it to your space that you own already. You have more power in that space than anybody else. Your phone is so powerful. But the challenge we have with the real issue is that coming against power, you have to be ruthless. You have to be understanding that you're going to get some backlash. You're going to get some people coming at you. And if you really believe in your idea and you think it's workable, you have to go forward with it. If you don't have a backbone, don't go into it, because you're going to face with an ultimatum. And that doesn't happen just because you're running for office. This happened to us, whether Maisha, myself, or a dear friend here from Kenya. When you're just being an advocate, if you want any form of change, once you step into the room, you have to have some form of backbone with you. And you have to remind the person you're talking to that 60% of the Commonwealth is young people. And if you don't give me no, understand here, I know that this is something good for us. We will take it. Sooner or later, after 48 hours to 72 hours, they will respond. The challenge is that power will always divide anything that is coming against them. So you have to ensure that your team is true to the cause as well. One of the challenges that we put teams together, but some of them are just spies for other parties. So they come inside their team to be informed about what's going on. But when the push comes to shove, when you're faced against the wall, you realize that it's only 3 of you standing and everybody else is gone. What do you do then? Because what has happened is that all along, either side had people in your team, and when the time comes, all they did was separate it and divide. You have to be discerning about the persons who march with you. Martin Luther King made it very clear, have a dream, and all those who were committed to the dream walked with it. If you're not committed, they just didn't show up. But the point is, we have to be clear about the team that we put together. My challenge is that we have young people who extremely want change. We have some very strong and ardent youth advocate, but at the end of the day, when it really counts for you to stand and say, for you to not be partisan, for you to not be biased, for you to be objective, you are nowhere to be found. And the truth is, that's why I agree with you, Joel, that many of our own young people are already bought into the politics. And they contribute to the voter apathy that we see. We see it on Twitter, Jamaica. We see it on Twitter, Commonwealth. We see it all over. If you objectively say anything against anybody, no matter who it is, whether prime minister, opposition, you're immediately being tossed across because you don't agree. Where is the intellectual opinion? Isn't that what we went to university for? Isn't that what we got education for, so we can be rigorous and critique? That is what the change is about, and you don't have all the answers. I'm trying to understand where it is that it says in the Constitution that the PM is absolute. There is no such thing. Neither is the leader of the opposition absolute. Nobody is. It means that you propose something, we discuss, and we collaborate, and we find a way forward. Young people have to remember that this game is about power. And this game of power, nobody wants to share it, not even the PM himself or herself. Because the reality is that as much as I can keep, I'm going to take. You have to go in there remembering that you may not have the money, but you have numbers. Our MP from Kenya said it. He didn't have the money. He knew he didn't, because young people naturally we are not coming from a wealthy background, generally the masses. We're not coming from a wealthy background, and most of our families who are wealthy already have picked a side. That is the truth. Any wealthy family that you see in any country already have a political affiliation. They are not neutral most times. They already have a political affiliation. So when you are coming in as a young person, you are now showing them that you are representing the middle to lower class that don't have a say, and they want a seat and they have power. Show them that the 5,000 people in your constituency mean something, or the 5,000 young people in Jamaica that are back in your organization can do something to their reputation. Because public perception is what politicians respond to. Public perceptions lead to popularity. Popularity leads to more power. If you damage perception, you damage popularity. That's how the change really happens for them. That's how you enter into this public space, whether you're an MP or you're a leader. But we as young people have to learn to stand with each other, whether online or offline. Even if I'm not the one leading the cause, I'm going to stand with Maisha. Why? The principle of what she's going for is important to every young person. And we need to stop being competitive, and that is why the change is not happening. Everybody is competing. Nobody wants to complement each other. If Maisha is leading on education, let her lead on education. That is her role. That is what her office is focused on. I don't need to lead on it. If she has an initiative that she's doing and she asks us to support, I will support it and put all the boys towards it, because that is what we're here to do. Complement, not compete. So change must happen in a team that is willing to complement each other and not compete. So that's why I am extremely worried about my generation. As I exit the youth age next year, praise be to God, I am saying I'm extremely concerned, because what I see on Twitter, is far more partisan than it is objective. And that's why I think even the generation that went before us, the elders and otherwise, are even more woefully worried or concerned, because they're saying to me, but Tijani, the young people them are so different from the older ones. They've already bought into the Kool-Aid. They're already singing, they're already drinking the same tongue. And then the few of us, Joel, like Maisha and us and the others who are objective to say, it's not going to work. We are left in the desert to stand and shout with a placard. We want justice. We want justice.
Thank you so much for those for that pointer right there. Like you guys are literally hitting the nail on the head tonight, Maisha, Tijani, and John Paul. I think it is so important for us to have this kind of discourse, because a lot of us are lost and we do need some sense of direction. And Tijani, you mentioned some very critical points. We're closing in on the time now. But first of all, I want to just remind you guys, you can shoot some recommendation and suggestions in the group now. But how do we effectively, and this is my question to everybody, and I want to give me an answer in 1 minute. That's for Maisha, Tijani, and John Paul, because we're closing in on the time. How can we effectively efforts? I think a part of advocacy, a part of the struggle with advocacy, is that you have so many different groups doing different things. Population of 3 million people, of which I'm not exactly sure what the percentage of youth is, but we groups doing so many different things, and as such the uniformity to approach certain things becomes difficult. For example, I see Tariq here in the chat asking, voting separately for an MP and a prime minister. Personally, for me, I think it's time we get rid of Westminster system. That's just me. That's just me. For my prime minister separate from my MP, because I feel like if you vote separate for a prime minister, you'll have quality candidates coming, but you'll be a little bit more progressive. You'll have human rights issues that we have been sitting on for years because of party politics, have stifled. So how do people to make a suggestion of that nature? Because if we don't, then it has been cyclical in terms of the continuity of how things are done. Nothing's changing. The generation is coming up seeing the same thing. Probably it's time we look at the system of governance. Probably this Westminster just now work. Probably we need to have elected senators. But how many would be willing to support discourse along that line? So my question to all three of you, as young people, because the power, really and truly, Tijani, as you mentioned, is really in the numbers. Let me start with Dr. Maisha.
So in 1 minute, if I had to summarize, I think I might take a little bit more time. I think one of the things that I would like to share based on the experience, as I said, when I was in Jamaica, I completely, as an outsider again, could really feel that partisan nature. And, we always go on with that, this young person, we want young person in parliament, we want the youth voices. But to some extent, when I speak to young people, the young persons, they're very much, they're singing the same tunes as what the senior members of that particular affiliated political party is speaking. I think put Jamaica before your party, or put Jamaica before any affiliation. Be patriotic. Put the country's excellence, put the country's well-being first before the party. So be objective. I think there's that kind of chastisation as well. If you don't associate with a political party in Jamaica, this is again a feeling that I'm getting that, oh, you aren't JLP or PNP. Oh, come on, you have to be something. And I find that a very disappointing perspective coming from educated young millennial men and women. You should not be looking, I as a Singaporean am very aligned to one of the political parties, and I'm also part of the youth group, but I never vote just because I am part of that. I am going to look at the opposition manifesto, and I will continue voting the party that I have voted for until I see someone who's come, equivalent or better. And I will give that opportunity. And I'm saying that as a person who's voted just one party, So that being said, please reclaim that power, reclaim that narrative. Don't let JLP or PNP think that they can take it for granted that you will vote for them because you're a part of their youth organization. Please be objective. Please look at both candidates' manifestos and what they have promised and what they're capable of delivering for your constituency. Who becomes the government, who becomes the prime minister, we'll see it at the end of the day, once you tally the votes and see who takes majority. But reclaim that. And as young persons, please look for what you need. You need to make sure that when you graduate from your universities and graduate from colleges, the government and politicians have shaped an economy, shaped a job market for you to be able to have a dignified, steady, stable life that will have upward growth and trajectory. Choose that government who talks about climate change and puts in policies that are relevant to climate change, who are, walking the talk. If they aren't, then hold them responsible. Use your Twitter voice, use your Instagram voice. You have so much. Now anything can go viral. And as Tijani said, image is important. So make use of that. This isn't the 1920s where you have to always just go on the road. You can literally sit in your bedroom and create change. So please take that power and take it back. Vote for women's representation. Figure out what is important to you and make sure you vote for what's important to you and the kind of climate and environment you want. And no, our voice is not important every 4 years. Our voices as young people, as a young women, is important every day. And I will make sure that I vote, and I will make sure that I hold politicians accountable throughout their tenure, not just when they're campaigning. So my one closing statement would be: reclaim your narrative. 2, back to yourself. You can and you have that capacity.
So much, Maisha. Let me hop over to Tijani for your closing statement, pretty much answering the same question in terms of how do we come together as young people better so that we can actually push the buttons and actually see some change taking place.
I start a part of where Maisha ended up in terms of changing the narrative, and also back to something I left off in terms of my previous comment is this: call them out. Just as though when we go into a meeting, we call out the MP or the policy maker who we met with, and we call it out on social media that this didn't happen. We must also call out our own youth advocates and leaders who seem extremely partisan, wherever they may be. So when we're on Twitter and you can see an obvious sight of clearly intended, no thought given to responding or retweeting to things that you know is rubbish. Call it out for what it is. When you remain silent, your abstention doesn't mean that you does not agree. Because in the eyes of the public, all it means is that you just decided not to retweet it, but you are agreeing because you didn't call it out. Your responsibility is not just to yourself, but it is to the others that you serve. And if it is that you didn't want this job as a youth leader, don't take it up. Because leadership means that you are representing people. You are representing not your opinion only, but you are representing those that you serve. We need to call out, yes, the politician, but we need to call out our partisan youth leaders. We need to call out our partisan young people who are obviously have passed degrees, have masters and PhD, and cannot see that there's a difference between green and orange. And because they cannot see any difference, we need to call them out and say there is other colors that exist in the universe. And you are only seen in one color. We need to call them out. It is those things, and we need to ensure that we do not allow our same youth leaders to affect or condemn or in any way stain offices, public offices, that we were elected to serve in and make them into partisan showboats. That's not what it is for. And we call them out for it. If I am doing something and you see that something, I don't have a problem if Maisha calls me and says, Tijani, something you said or something happened and I don't think you're going very balanced and measured. Take it and go forward. But if I don't take heed to that, I'm going to she should call me out on social media. Because clearly I'm not taking heed. We cannot be using public office to support candidates and support our individual. But no, that's not what this is for. We're here to serve objectively. And if we do not serve the young people who elected us, who will serve them? Who will serve them is a real question here. So at the end of the day, what you're doing is giving them a disservice after they elected you to bring their voice to the public, because you know that they do not have the privilege like you. And we need to call and remember that a lot of us are placed in this position because of our own privilege that we have. And there are so many young people who never had it. And all you are doing is giving them a disservice because you do not wish to call out for what it is. If you don't want to do it, don't take up the job. It's time for you to exit.
So much for sharing that very passionate but very important point as well with your closing statement. I'm now going to hop over to John Paul for his closing statement. Similar along the lines, John Paul, you've done such a tremendous job changing the narrative and the discourse in Kenya. I'm sure a lot of persons are motivated right now on the call to see that it's not impossible to achieve certain things when you put your mind to it. So what do you want to leave us with, John Paul? Your final words to us.
For the young people to date, we are supposed to elect policies, but not political parties. And to elect policies which are attainable, not ambiguous policies set by politicians. Because the politicians are such people who normally know how to entice the electorates so that with good things, with what they can perform, something which cannot be attained logically. So let us elect policies which are attainable. Secondly, the political position, it is not somebody's property. It is a public entity where you are supposed to lead your people and deliver to your people. The young people, we have power because we are in large number. Let us call those politicians who does not deliver on their policies out of their offices, because this is something which will make a politician to be on tour always and to deliver to the people as promised. The third point, let the young people elect somebody who has focus to enhance the young people policies. Because if we will fail to elect a person who focuses to ideas of the young people, we will still remain behind. Our policies will not be implemented. So it is the right time for the young people to choose a leader who is focused to delivering something which is on the line with the young people of our country. The third point, the fourth point, the young people of our nation, it is the high time we raise our voice, because we are the population of the young people in the world is very high, but in elective position, the number from 2017 reaches to 10% of the elected leaders. Not that we do not have capacity to run, but our ideas are deemed on the way. The ladies, because this is another vulnerable group which is challenged by the politician. When you are told something, you shy off, and even if you have a good idea to implement to your people, or you can maybe have something which you want to articulate to your people, being a lady, you shy off because the men have dominated or they are domiciled. It is the right time for the women also to raise their voice in this leadership, because I have seen the women also delivering and changing the status of the country. So it is the high time we accept the both voices of the young people, the young men and the young ladies who are capable of leading our country. And I know that if they are given the chance, they can convert the narrative of leadership in our countries. And even those old cronies, because maybe somebody may fear, because somebody who is contesting as a prime minister is a old person, and that is somebody who has the monopoly of ideas. That is not the case. The case is that we have fresh blood, fresh ideas. If put in use, they can change and transform our nations. So maybe if we can take those ideas, or we can take the advice which we have offered tonight, maybe we can change the leadership of this country. And let many young people come out and exercise their power in voting on that, please, so that we can have numbers in both Senate and House of Representatives, and our things will change, because the young people are the same people who are more vibrant in the social media. And today, you know, the social media has power. It can damage you, it can build you. Let us channel also our voices through those social medias to mobilize more young people to this cause. And let me challenge the young people. Young people are very dangerous people. They are the people who are against the likes of their fellow young people. Let's support one of our own, because we normally fight with the young people who has the ideas. Person, I see another young person who has some ideas. Maybe young person who has ideas to lead, as if that person is not capable. It is the right time for the young people to assist their fellow colleagues, because we normally fight within ourselves.
For that point, John Paul, I appreciate that 110%. Thank you so much, Maisha. Thank you so much, Tijani. And a major thanks to Juts for putting this session on. I think we're living in a digital space right now, and we have to utilize the platform as best as we can. And I'm so happy that the Juts team were able to assemble such an important group of people. So just a few reminders. Remember to follow Juts on social media, because that's really where all the sauce is. The recap, etc. And coming out of this discussion, the team will be putting together a document to send over to the relevant personnel in the government to be, if or the government will remain as is, to send over these recommendations, because it's also important that once we're gathered to have these kind of discussions, we record things and we send it over to them. We have to ensure that we heighten our advocacy as well. So while we have disagreements and have a dissatisfaction with how things are done, you also have to document these things and send it over. There's power in words, there's power in numbers, and there's also power in documentation. So we have to be mindful of that as well. So one more time, major shout out to the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students organization for coordinating this discussion. And of course, many thanks to Tijani, John Paul, and Maisha for joining us as well. I think what we got tonight really was balanced, but it boiled back down to the point of young people really and truly understanding the power that we have within. And once we unite, and once we have the vision of a better country and an objective view, we can really make a difference. So the apathy is there, but it's also critical to realize that if we don't act, the policies will never change, and the change that we want to see as objective and patriotic young people will never come to fruition. We can't sit here and watch it. We also have to be a part of the dialogue, the conversation. We have to be a part of the change-making movements. So Instagram at JUTSJA. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook as well. And of course, to all the participants tonight, you can connect with them on social media. I'm sure everybody have social media. Tijani, Maisha, and John Paul. You can connect with us. You can connect with me as well on Twitter, Instagram, and let's just get this movement, steady. So keep in touch with the JUTS page, and I hope everybody have a wonderful rest of evening. And for those who will be exercising their democratic right on Thursday, please do so carefully. We know that the COVID is here, so please do so carefully. And yeah, this was a really good chat. Thank you guys so much for joining. Until next time.